We had the best time doing the initial breakdown of the body language and behavior in this video, and we decided we'd revisit some of our favorite moments from it.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail. They were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us
and the loss to the community, and to the families, and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Mark, what do you got?
Eye blocking with the fingers right from moment one. Eyelids go down, shading of the head. So she's trying to hide herself. Well, yeah, she has been, ambushed, shall we say. So there may be some reasoning for that. We get her checking for tears. Or is she checking that, her mascara isn't running, maybe? I don't know. But whatever it is, there's an obsession with how she might look or what the physical appearance is doing around the eyes. That's that I wouldn't expect to see for somebody who's in a devastated state. When you're devastated, you're not too worried about the impression that you're making. She says, I'm so devastated. I didn't have. My mum passed away. Good and kind to me. Anything wrong to me. My own children. So there's a huge focus in her language. The ego meter, shall we say, has moved to the I, to the me, not to they, them, their. It's all I, me, mine. Well, that's unusual, I would say, not what I would expect for somebody who is truly devastated. So I'm already cautious around what's going on here. Certainly excited to see more. Scott, what do you got on this one?
The mainstream media is not broken at all. It is functioning exactly as it was designed. It exists to manipulate you, to divide you, to feed you fear and outrage and distraction while pretending all of that is information. And most people are still swallowing it like it's gospel. I've spent years studying propaganda and psychological operations and human behavior, and I will tell you this plainly. The media is not here to tell you the truth. It's here to shape your truth without you even realizing it. Every network, every outlet, left or right or center, they are all playing the exact same game. Keep you emotionally hijacked, cognitively blind, and addicted to narratives engineered by people who have zero interest in informing you at all. So they manufacture a bunch of division, they amplify lies, and they bury stories that threaten their control. This is not journalism. This is mass psychological warfare. This is why we use ground news. It is not just a news app. It is a tactical weapon for seeing through all this fog. Ground news pulls in all these stories from every source, whether it's liberal or conservative or state-run, corporate-owned, billionaire-owned, and they show you these biases and the ownership of who owns the outlet that wrote that article, the spin. And then finally, my favorite is what is being left out of that article. I always talk about let's look for what's missing. They do that at ground news. So you're going to watch these narratives fracture in real time. You're going to be able to spot manipulation like it is lit up in neon. And once you see how disgustingly coordinated all this stuff is, you're not going to be able to unsee it. The behavior panel never really partners with very many brands, but ground news is way different. It puts the power back into people's hands instead of the news. So go to ground.news/TBP. Scan the QR code or hit the link in the description. We've got you 40% off of the same plan that we use. So don't keep trusting the people reading scripts for billionaires. Stop being programmed and start seeing the depth of what is actually going on.
If you've taken the True Crime Workshop, you'll know exactly what you're seeing here. This woman is insulating herself from these people by crying so much that she can't even talk. She can't even engage with them because she's so emotionally distraught here. So the more questions they ask, the further away she gets, and they can't get to her. The fake cry is pretty bad. And when somebody's crying for real, they make these almost guttural sounds from the diaphragm. And that's not what we're hearing here. There's nothing, erupting from the diaphragm. It's all chest stuff. It's all coming from the chest. The breathing is under control. There's none of that deep gasping that you hear a lot of times when someone's been crying real hard or they're feeling true grief, as she would be in this situation, I would assume. Especially this, it's not very long afterwards that this happened that she's being asked these questions, that she got ambushed at the house. So we're not seeing or hearing those things when it comes to true grief. Now she's wiping her eyes, and it's such a horrible attempt to show that she's feeling grief, that she's grieving, because there's nothing there. I'm not, so far I haven't seen any real tears or any tears at all. And we're not seeing that frontalis engagement like we should have. No quote unquote grief muscle, nothing happening in there. It's minimal to zero. Again, no deep breaths. They're all just these quick little things from the chest. And when she said, the guy asked, "Can you tell us about the meal you cooked?"
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened.
She doesn't even get near it. She doesn't say anything about it. She starts talking about how it's a tragedy what happened, and then it would talk about her children and her friends and everything but what she was going to feed them. She talks about how it was her grandmother. Apparently, she's divorced, and these are her ex-in-laws. Now, my wife's a PI, and she's also a mushroom expert. So when this came up, she's like, first time she said, "You all doing this?" I said, "I'm sure we will be." And she went on to explain the mushroom, which is called the death cap, that this woman that she accidentally put in their food. And what did they make, Mark? Yeah. What did she make?
She made beef Wellington, which is incredibly complex to do. She'd have been using the mushrooms in what's called the deluxe part of it. It's a beautiful part of the beef Wellington. The beef Wellington, by the way, is a labor of love. You only make beef Wellington because you love people. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But yeah, she made beef Wellington, Scott.
So and Amber also told me that the scientific name for this, or the technical name for it, is the Amanita Phyllades. I think I'm pronouncing that right. She said, "What's your pronunciation?" Because mushroom people will get on you. So I don't know if I'm saying it correctly or not, but I think that's the way she pronounced it, or said to pronounce it. It might be Amanita. I'm not sure. So anyway, if mushroom people give me a break. I don't know. I'm not into the whole thing. I don't know how to pronounce all those. But apparently, she said these things take a few days to kill you sometimes, most of the time. And what happens is they go into your organs and they start shutting things down. And it's really painful, and it's a horrible thing to go through. But as you go through this, after the first couple of days, you feel like, hey, I'm coming around. Things start looking good. But not long after that, you head right for the squatter a lot of the time. Not everybody dies from this, but it's a horrible poisoning situation. So if you think you've been poisoned by these things, you got to get to the doctor quick, or get to the hospital quick.
Devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Donnie's still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather.
Now, I think what's happened, this woman is talking about the people who were killed so far. And she names one guy, Ian, who she says was dead. And I think he's the preacher or the priest, and he wasn't dead at the time of this. She got those names wrong. So I think if I were her, I'd pretty much know who was alive or who wasn't alive. And I'd be counting and praying, because especially now, because the longer it goes on, the more that die, the more trouble she would be in if she did this. Chase, what do you got?
So they ask her, "Can you tell us about the meal we cooked?" And she just launches into, "I was devastated, blah, blah, blah." This is classic avoidance. And here's the science behind that. When someone has an internal desire to protect information or guilt, the limbic system overrides their logic, which it can do anytime that it wants to. It can just take over your brain. In this case, she's unable to answer because there's so much fear around the subject of the lunch. She's unable to understand that a reasonable person would both understand and respond to the question. And her fear overrides this rational thinking and defaults to concealment. When it comes to her tears, she takes her glasses off, I think, so maybe that they might be more visible. I could be wrong. Then she checks for tears or makeup, like you said, Mark, and I don't see any coming. But then she's nodding while she's saying the victims' names.
Donnie's still in hospital. The loss of Ian and Heather and Gail.
Like this person, and then this person, and then this person. Like you're trying to, when you're a kid, trying to recite the alphabet. This is the behavior of somebody trying hard to remember a list. Like when I was taking final exams in like radiology, and I'd be in my head going like pica, posterior, inferior, cerebellar, artery, and like trying to do this. I'd be nodding my head during the exam. That's the same thing we're seeing here. The most giant red flag of all to me is they've never done anything wrong to me.
Never did anything wrong to me.
Which in her mind might mean if they had done something wrong, then I would maybe do something. So this is all our opinion, though. When I heard this come out, I got a cold chill this morning. I could spend an hour on this clip here and not cover everything. I think all of us could. And this one's going down in the history books. There's so many clusters here. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, let's talk for a minute about crying. I was on a plane with a kid yesterday. The kid cried out loud over things they had a reason to cry about, like the engine and that kind of stuff. And that's a passionate, airy, lots of crying, all that wailing that kids do. The minute it became a manipulative cry, the cadence changed, and there's no more broken breathing that went with it. So people use crying in some ways. If you're crying out of emotion, there's often rapid heartbeat, lots of respiration, and it's a broken kind of a sound. That's when it is caused by crying. That broken voice is caused that way. When the fracture in the voice isn't crying, but it's trying to control emotion, then it comes in waves. You try to control, it loosens up, and it comes in waves. Either one of those is really genuine crying. I'm either trying to control the crying and or I have broken breathing. Neither is going on here.
I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us?
And the loss to the community and to the families.
This is too rhythmic, and it almost sounds, Scott, like you're loping that you usually talk about, like it's intended. There's no attempt. A couple of things just to point out. The tear check looks like she's lost passion for the cry and she's doing something. There is no sorrow in her brow tips. None. No grief. We talk about the grief muscle, but there's no sorrow in her brow tips. Sorrow is a different thing. That's why we don't believe her. Now, let's also say we can't tell intent. Even if she did, in fact, poison these people, which it appears she did, was it intentional? We can't tell that by watching body language. We can only say, I don't see sorrow. I don't see this. I don't see that. And that's what we're going to have to go with, because this is all going to be our opinions of what we're seeing based on how this woman is interacting in a 4-minute video. But there's a whole lot of clusters here. There's a whole lot of crying that's not real. There's no fracture in the voice. There's no respiration causing the cry. This feels like that same little kid on the plane when wah, 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 until they got what they're after. I don't trust the crying. I don't trust the tears. Let's wait and see if she does better.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Donnie's still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail, who were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us?
And the loss to the community, and to the families, and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
You've described to the relationship with your ex-partner Simon. I'd like to understand why you had his parents and his uncle and auntie over for lunch. the 29th of July?
Because I've got no other family. So they're the only support I've got
Okay.
left, and they've always been really good to me.
Yeah.
And I want to maintain those relationships with them,
Yeah.
in spite of what's happened to Simon.
Yeah. Okay.
I love them a lot.
Yeah.
They've always been really good to me. And they always said to me that they would support me with love and emotional support, even though Simon and I were separated, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Because my parents are both gone. My grandparents are all gone. They're the only family that I've got.
Yeah.
And they're the only grandparents that my children have. And I want them to stay in my kids' life.
Yeah.
And that's really important to me. And I think Simon hated that I still had a relationship with his parents. But I love them.
Yeah.
Nothing that's ever happened between us, nothing he's ever done to me will change the fact that they're good, decent people that have never done anything wrong by me ever.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
All right, let's talk about this, like spikes, because we always talk about these spikes of behavior. So I got to use my little orange Illustrator pen. So something happens that's contextually relevant. Let's use this counter behind me as like a little baseline. So boom, right at this, between these two cabinets, bam, some question gets answered that's relevant. And right away, we see a massive spike in behaviors. We want to look for a few, and we call this a cluster when we see a couple of behaviors together. So at this question...
You've described to me relationship with your ex-partner, Simon.
We see what we refer to as eye blocking, this kind of prolonged looking away. It's not long blinking, different. This is kind of like the skull and eyelids move at the same time. It's how I define it. Y'all may do it differently. But we see eye blocking. We see restricted nodding, kind of a very, very restricted, self-governing nodding going on. And we see some hardcore lip compression. And when we say lip compression, we mean this, like someone squeezing their lips together. The Anthony Weiner is what I like to call this when I do training. But this lip compression typically means something is being withheld, usually an opinion or a feeling or an idea. So I saw three big red flags there, or there are three flags, and they became red once they all came together. So the question was very simple. Why did you have them over for lunch? The question is this big. The answer should be this big. Her reply is that big. That's a big deal. So instead of a quick reason, she rolls out this long emotional monologue, and it's just stacked with justifications all over the place. She repeats herself.
And they've always been really good to me.
That shows up twice in under 20 seconds.
They've always been really good to me.
And that's what we call a resume statement. There's a lot of resume stuff going on here, trying to reinforce an image instead of giving new information. So she over-compliments them.
They're good, decent people that have never done anything wrong by me.
Which is unnecessary unless she's defending against something. But her pronouns shift. When she's talking about the positive, it's they and them instead of their names.
Okay.
I love them a lot.
And that's a very subtle psychological distancing going on there. But she jumps between time frames too. There's present emotion to past history.
They've always been really good to me. And they always said to me that they would support me.
And trust me, ask one of your friends about somebody they love and trust. They will have a clean timeline that justifies some of these things and clear actions. What we're seeing here is a smoke layer to keep this brain in association mode instead of sequencing mode is what those two modes that I learned in the military. So if I drop this into the NCI Behavior Compass, which is a profiling tool that maps out fears and needs and insecurities and decision drivers, it lights up in the social needs quadrant for acceptance, approval, and pity. She frames herself worthy of care, only family I've got, important to my kids, and she builds this empathy shield with loss aversion, like grandparent loss, the grandparents from my kids angle. She's making it socially risky to challenge her. And I think she's probably not consciously doing this, but I think that that's what's going on. On the verbal axis, we have non-answer paddings, way more than needed, the resume statements. So it's labels without proof. And that's one thing, if you're taking notes here for your interviewing, where am I seeing labels without any statements behind it? You'll always see statements in a regular conversation. And this politeness layer that's slightly higher than this baseline. So for a tiny question, this is a lot of image management and just this big defensive steel architecture that she's kind of building around this. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, well, here's what I've got, Chase, is that if you go back and you watch that video that Chase was talking about there, if you don't have the quality of analysis that Chase had just then, you'll hear quite a good answer from her. That is the reality. If you don't get into that very nuanced analysis, what you get actually is somebody taking a lot of time to say, hey, you know, I love these people. They've never done anything wrong to me. But just as you said, a little bit of negativity towards the ex-husband. Okay, ex-husband. I mean, of course you can have a little bit of a negativity, but these other people, they said, you know, they'd support her. They love her. They're good, decent people, she says. Well, we weren't asking, though, for a character analysis. We were asking, why did you get together, just as you said, Chase? Now, a good answer to that would be, you know, it was a birthday. It was a birthday. Or we get together every quarter. Or just because. I mean, you could do a double shoulder shrug and we just did. You know, that would be a fair answer, not here's why I would never kill them. which is what, you know, with some analysis, you can kind of construed from that. But, you know, look, it does lack all the usual more extreme maligning of the victims that you'd get. But then you're right, Chase, it swings kind of to the other side of that. Is it too good? Does it take up too much air? Especially given the question. There isn't really any hedges and qualifiers that we'd normally get, apart from the massive qualifier of everything that she says, given the question. If you miss out, I would say, on the initial question, you get a really good answer from her. If you really understand the initial question, you get a massive hedge and qualifier from her. But if you don't understand that question of why did you get together, you get, I think, a really kind of good, clear conscience and consistent answer from her. A consistent answer to not the question that was asked. Greg, what do you got on this one?
I think she is answering the question that was asked.
Okay.
The question was asked, why did you invite them over? And the implied question is, why did you kill them? That's the implied question. Right. And I think her processor is so hot right now that we saw her kind of go into that 1,000-yard stare in the last video. Now she's got to answer a hard question. If I'd asked her the question, why did you kill them? This is a brilliant answer to that. Yeah. Why would I kill them? They're beautiful, wonderful people. It's a brilliant answer. It's just beautiful. However, that's not what he asked her out loud. And she knows it, so that's why she's answering in this way. And I agree with you. Let's start in the very beginning with that acceptance of the relationship with her ex-husband. You see that chin boss and the brow come up at the same time. That's acceptance. Yeah, we're in a bad place, and maybe even some shame or grief for where it's at. What's interesting is she rattles on about these brilliant, wonderful people. Anybody see any cheer, grief, emotion, anything? Anything. I mean, I see nothing. This is like Frosty the frickin' Snowman telling you a story. He's got no features that can move. That's what we're seeing. She's using words to illustrate, why would I hurt them? In response to the question. I'm not going to go into a lot more on this one because, Chase, you've done all the clusters. But listen to the question asked and then listen to the answer, and you'll see she's answering the implied question. Really, really powerful. It means her little processor's heating up, and she knows she's on the griddle. Scott, what do you got?
All right. I'll address that last part as well about her talking everybody up like that. I think as she has all that information in her head, she knows she has to get all these things out. She has to let them know that they got along. She has to let them know that she loved them and they loved her. I think that's what she saw her shot and took it on this one. That's what I think, because she has structured this in blocks, this story she's got, and there's just a bunch of stuff laying around as well as far as information for saving her, hiding from going to the death, to the death chamber or whatever. from her story. So I think she said, here's a shot I need to put in this part about how much I love them and how much they love me. And that's what she starts talking about.
Okay.
I love them a lot. They've always been really good to me. And they always said to me that they would support me with love and emotional support, even though Simon and I were separated. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
It's not about structuring the sentences for her, how to put those together, because we're not in those tight interrogations where somebody's all over her. It's just a really big picture, and they're lobbing stuff in, and she's ducking out of the way and then throwing something back and then lobbing something back at them. And I think that was the big old, had a big bunch of it and lobbed that back at them. Said, oh, you know, shoot, I love them. They love me. They've always been good to me, always. So I think that's what that is. She doesn't have the structure right, but she has all the rocks she needs to throw, in other words. Does that make sense, or am I getting too far out there metaphorically?
No, I think it's right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's what's happening there. One thing, all the clusters, all the cues been covered except for that one really long double shoulder shrug.
Because I've got no other family. So they're the only support I've got.
And she does it. They go up, and it's really subtle, but they go up like this, and they stay for about a second or a second and a half, and that's about as long as they're supposed to last. She was answering the question, and she was being honest about why they were there. They were family. The question wasn't, why'd you kill him? So I'm not giving you that answer. She's giving the right answer for that. So I agree with you, Greg. That's why she's doing that, because that's the correct answer to give, is they're here because they're family, but she added too much to it on the end. And that's where I would say, if there was any point, up to this point, I've said, nothing looks, red flaggy to me is anything big. That looks like one. She's added too much to it. She's gone over the line of how much she loves them and they loved her. That's what would make me go, oh, okay, wait just a minute, and scooch back a little bit and come from another angle and start asking questions around that same question, around that same answer. So, all right. What?
Remember Rebecca Fenton? I loved him and he loved me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
they're great people, wonderful people. Everybody says they're great. They're the greatest in the world. Everybody agrees they're the best.
You've described to the relationship with your ex-partner, Simon. I'd like to understand why you had his parents and his uncle and auntie over for lunch on the 29th of July.
Because I've got no other family. So they're the only support I've got.
Okay.
And they've always been really good to me.
Yeah.
And I want to maintain those relationships with them.
Yeah.
In spite of what's happened to Simon.
Yeah. Okay.
I love them a lot.
Yeah.
They've always been really good to me. And they always said to me that they would support me with love and emotional support, even though Simon and I were separated. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Because my parents are both gone. My grandparents are all gone. They're the only family that I've got.
Yeah.
And they're the only grandparents that my children have. And I want them to stay in my kids' life.
Yeah.
And that's really important to me. And I think Simon hated that I still had a relationship with his parents. But I love them.
Yeah.
Nothing that's ever happened between us, nothing he's ever done to me will change the fact that they're good, decent people that have never done anything wrong by me ever.
All right, fellas, I think this is another good one, and we'll see you next time.